Hello everyone, welcome to SFDC Vlogs. In today's video, we are going to talk about how to connect two different Salesforce org through REST APIs. So, all those people who have not worked on REST APIs or RESTful web services, definitely this is going to be an interesting video for you. So, in the screen in front of me, you can see there is a formula. So, we'll discuss about it on a later stage. So, let me show you. Number one, we are having one Salesforce org with us, uh, and also we have another Salesforce org. So basically, what we are going to do is that we are going to write web services on one Salesforce org, and we are going to consume that through the REST APIs on another Salesforce org. So let us get started. So what are REST APIs? Basically, if you want to access any external system, then you need to write those REST APIs in order to access the data or any other thing on that external system. So, in order to create the web services, what we need to do is we need to click on the setup first, and we need to go on to the apps. So we'll go on to create apps, we'll click onto it. Then you can see there are connected apps. So I have already one connected app with me, so I'll do it from scratch. So what is the connected app? So basically, in this Salesforce org, I want other system to integrate with my particular Salesforce org. Let's assume if I have leads in my system and I want somebody from external system to access my leads, then I'll write a connected app. I'll create a connected app, and I'll write the web services for them so that they can access my leads or any other data on my Salesforce org. So I went to the app section, I went to the connected app, and I'll create a new connected app here. So we can give any name to this connected app. Let's assume we say uh, my first connected app. So API name is also copied, and for the email I'll need to write my email ID so that if there is any issue, I'll get the notification. So you need to write the app name and the contact email, then you do not need to write any other thing. You just need to go on to the enable OAuth settings. You need to check onto that. Now it will ask for the callback URL. So callback URL are basically from where uh, my web services would be called. For example, if there is any external system, from their URL my system would be called. So I need to give the URL. So if I go on to the information, so it will shows, for example, login.salesforce.com, enter URLs one per line, do not separate entries with comma, semicolon or other characters. There's the info. So I'll copy my URL from another Salesforce org and I'll paste over here. So I'm going to access that Salesforce org from this particular Salesforce org. So I'm going to copy my URL and I'll write over here. And then once I mark the callback URL here, I need to provide the access. So the level of access you can manage from here. So I'll give full access to this system and I'll save this. The rest of the values you do not need to save, and you just need to save with the following values that I filled up on in the connected app. Once you'll save, uh, it'll show allow from 2 to 10 minutes for your changes to effect on the server before using the connected app. So it takes time, but I'll click on continue so that the app is ready, the connected app is ready. So yeah, my first connected app, this is the name of the app and this is ready. You see, now the most important part is when you create a connected app, you'll get two things. Number one is the consumer key, which is often called as the client ID. Number two is the consumer secret, which is often called as the client secret. So these two are very, very important in order to make any connection. So before going to move, before showing on how to make a connection, we can go on to the manage section. So you can see there is a manage button. We'll click on to manage, and there are the edit policy button. We'll click on to edit policies. Now why we did that? Because see, you can see here there's a IP relaxation pick list. So currently it is enforce IP restrictions, but for now I do not want this to happen, so I'll do this as relax IP restrictions, and then I'll save this. So this is just for the testing purpose, but once you're working for any organization, you need to enforce the IP restrictions. So I'll, for now I'm relaxing all the IP restrictions, and I'm gonna save it, and I'll again go back to the connected apps. So I'll go to the my first connected app. So here it is. Now what I'll do, now this consumer key and client secret, which you can see here, it is useful in order to create a connection, in order to make a connection with my org. Now how can I make that connection? So I would need a web service to call from any external system. So for that I'll go onto the developer console and I'll write a new web service. So my first web service. So why I am doing this? Because see, if you have the connected app, so you can make the connection, that is fine. But once you make a connection, then you definitely have to access something in this org. So in order to access something in this org, you need to have some URLs which you need to hit. For the same, we would be writing the web services. So in order to do that, the first and foremost thing is that any web services need to be global. So I'll write it as global class, my first web service, and on top of it there is an annotation that we write rest resource, and then in bracket URL mapping equals to slash uh, get lead info slash star. So star is marked so that we can access all the leads in this org. So now we are going to write our first method. So before writing the method, we always give annotation before our method. So we'll write http get. So what we are doing here, we are writing a method to extract the information about the lead by passing an ID. So we'll do global static, and we're going to pass on the lead. So the return type would be lead get lead this. So now what we do, there is an annotation rest request req equals to rest context dot request rest response yes equals to rest context dot response. Okay, so what I told you, I would be passing on ID on the URL so that I can extract the information about that specific ID. So I'll write string URL ID equals to request URI dot substring eq dot request URI dot last index of slash plus 1. So through this way I'll get the URL ID which is there in the URL post the slash. So I'll show you through the postman. Then I'll write lead ld equals to select id comma name from lead where id equals to URL ID. Return the. So in this case my web service is ready now. So I'll save this class. Now you see the URL mapping I have given get lead info. So this is the most important thing, and then we need to write the URL in the form that get lead info would be there, slash ID would also be there, and it would be a get method, and we'll get the values of ID and name. So quickly we'll also go on to the postman to check how we do this. So all those people who are not very familiar about postman, so postman is an application where you can check if your APIs are working. You can also do the DML, you can also perform the DML through postman itself if you have the web services handy and if you have the URLs handy. So first of all, the request URL. So what should be the request? I'll show you. So I have this formula with me. So basically this is the whole URL. So we're gonna copy it. It's very easy. This everything is going to be same apart from the first login.salesforce.com. This needs to be replaced with the org URL. Rest in front of the client ID, you need to mention the client ID that I showed you from the connected app. Client secret, you need to write that username and password. So I'm gonna copy this whole and I'm gonna go on to the postman. I'm gonna paste it here. So now login.salesforce.com needs to be replaced with the exact URL of the application, though we can do that. Though we can use the login.salesforce.com, but it's a good practice to use the org URLs. So let me do that. Let me change that. Now in front of the client ID, we need to keep the client ID from connected app. So now you will see how important it is to get the consumer key. So I'll copy the consumer key. You see the my first connected app is here. I'll copy the consumer key and I'll paste it here. Okay, now it's about the client secret. So I'll click to reveal. I'll copy it and then I'll again go to the client secret. I will paste it here. Now username, I have the username vlogs at sfdcorg.com and password. This is the Salesforce Org username and the Salesforce Org password. API test @1. So there's a proper format, and what is this URL? Basically this URL is important to establish a connection with your Salesforce org. And why it is used? So that once you have the connection with your Salesforce, then you get a access token which is used to perform any other activity on your Salesforce. So I'll do this at post because get is not what we would be performing, it will be a post activity. So we'll click on post and then we'll click on send. So once we send, you will see there are different parameters which we get here, but the most important thing is the access token. So this access token is very important in order to establish a connection with my Salesforce org. So you see, Postman is a third party application. It did not know what exactly my username or anything is, but once I give them the URL, it is easily able to get the access token. So now I'll show you how easy it is to get any detail from the Salesforce org, given we have this access token. Everything is the access token. So let me do one thing. Let me also open a new tab here, and then I'll show you what we wrote here in the web service. So before that, I need to have a ID of a lead. So I'll click onto the leads. I'll click on Kristen Alkin. That's a lead with me. I have this ID, URL ID. Now what we need to do is see get lead info. So first of all, I'll copy the URL. So it's a URL, then services, then Apex REST, then see up to this first, this https ap16.salesforce.com is the Salesforce org URL. /services /apex rest is always used. Then you need to write the get lead info, which is written in front of the URL mapping. So I'll write get lead info, then / my ID. So I'll copy this ID, I'll paste it to Postman. So that's the ID. Now it's a get method, obviously, because you see here there's a get method we have uh, created. Now we need to write some headers. So some of the headers are content, sorry, it's a params. I'll go to the headers, content type, application /JSON, authorization, then it's bearer space. Now authorization is the access token where we need to mention. So bearer is always written and then space, then we need to write the access token. So we'll copy the access token from here and then we can paste here. So now this access token would be important to establish a connection with the Salesforce org and get the lead info. So yep, so I'll again paste the ID. Now I have the get method. Now I have this whole URL, I have the headers. Now I'll click on send and you see I have got the name as Kristen Alkin and ID as this. So I'll again re-verify if this is the name of the lead. Kristen Alkin, yes, Kristen Akin, sorry, that's the name, and we're able to fetch the info of the lead on Postman. So this is how we need to write the web services, and we can check the web services on our Postman. Now in the other part of the video, we will talk about how we can utilize what we did on Postman on another Salesforce org. So now this is the Salesforce org I have. I will be consuming this info on second Salesforce org in my next video. So till then, if you have any doubt, you can post it in the comment section. If you want to see how we can utilize it through the REST API, you need to watch the second part of the video, which would come very soon. Thank you for watching this video. If you liked my video, please click on like. If you want to see further updates about how we can utilize the maximum capabilities from the Salesforce, do hit the subscribe button. Thank you so much. Bye bye.